Hello learners, welcome back. Today we'll be covering the characterization of Kate Keller from Unit 4, All My Sons characterization part. Let's get on with it. Joe Keller's wife, Kate Keller, is kind, affectionate, and motherly. Like her husband Keller, Kate is jovial, warm, and a friendly neighbor. So all these are basically synonyms. This kind, affectionate, jovial, warm. Jovial also means a happy and friendly person. Warm also means a friendly person. Warm is also used in the sense of friendly here. And then again the word friendly is used. So basically what they're trying to say is that she's a good natured and friendly kind of woman. A friendly neighbor welcoming everyone home. She is a woman of enormous maternal love, extending her affection beyond her two children to George and Anne. So they're saying that she is a very motherly woman. She has a lot of maternal love. And this does not stop to her own two children, that is not to just Larry and Chris, but also to two other children, that is George and Anne, the two children of what was Joe Keller's business partner Steve Deva. She has firm belief that Larry, who was reported missing in World War II, has survived the war and would eventually return home. So she has a very strong belief that Larry, who was reported missing, Larry was never reported dead. He has only been reported missing. So she believes that Larry will someday surely return back home. Kate does not approve of the marriage of Chris with Anne, as this would mean that she has accepted Larry's death. So Kate is not approving of the marriage between Chris and Anne, because then it would mean that she has accepted yet yeah Larry is dead, because Anne was originally Larry's fiance. So if Larry is alive, then N would be married to who? Larry, right? But if N is being married to Chris, then that only means that Larry is dead, and she is not ready to accept this fact. This in turn would prove her husband's guilt, and then this would prove her husband's guilt, because somewhere deep inside she knows that it was because of her husband's actions that Larry died, either directly or indirectly. Her love. Wait, it's fixed here written, but it's wrong, so it would be 4. Her love for Larry does not allow her to accept the fact that he has died, and she is hopeful for his return. Just a second. Okay, so where were we? Yeah. Her love for Larry does not allow her to accept the fact that he has died, and she is hopeful for his return, living in denial and resorting to lies and self deception as a means of contending with her sorrow and anguish. Now, this part is basically very important. I haven't marked it down because it has been repeated many times previously. That's why I didn't feel the need to highlight it, because all the highlighted parts is actually part of the notes, right? So this part basically says that her immense amount of love for Larry does not let her accept this fact that Larry is dead, and therefore she has to be that if Larry is not dead, then it definitely means that he is alive. But there's no proof that he is alive, so she has to live in this kind of denial state that no, Larry cannot die. It means even if the facts are against it, because of some kind sort of belief, you can say, she has to keep on thinking that Larry is alive. She has to keep up this belief that Larry is alive, and this creates a state. This creates a state of denial, that even though the facts are against it, you still believe in this, right? So this is the state of denial, that even if all the facts are against a particular situation, your belief in that particular circumstance allows you to deny the facts, or allows you to ignore those facts, right? So in the same way, Kate Keller ignores the facts that Larry is dead, and she keeps on believing that Larry is in fact alive, and therefore she is hopeful for his return. and she resorts to lies and self-deceptions as a means of contending with her sorrow and anguish. Contend means to deal with a very problematic or difficult situation. So this is a very problematic and difficult situation, and to contend, to get over with it, to deal with it, she believes in all kinds of lies and self deceptions. Just like there was this, I don't know, Frank Lube, maybe that guy's name was. So when one of their neighbors, one of the Keller's neighbors, tried to tell Larry's future, or Larry's past and future, basically through astrology, and saying that Larry is actually still alive, and that day was Larry's lucky day when he went missing, so he cannot be dead. So Kate immediately grasps to the idea. She immediately starts believing that, yeah, even astrology is saying that Larry must be alive, so Larry has to be alive. So even though she does not believe in astrology, she knows it's utter shit, but still she has got some kind of, you can say, anchor. So she grasps onto that idea, she grasps into that last hope that, yeah, this is, if this person is saying, if this astrology is saying, then yes, it has to be true, right? So her belief in astrology, see, like here, right, it's written here. Her belief in astrology keeps her hopes of Larry's survival alive, with Frank's insistence that Larry's horoscope indicated the day Larry had died was his favorable day. So this Frank Lube guy, he said that when Larry died, it was his favorable day. So maybe he didn't die at all. Maybe he just went missing and he would come back. And so this is a kind of last hope for Kate. So he can see that Frank is on his side. So she immediately grasps to the idea that, yeah, astrology is actually correct. Even though if she never believed in astrology before, she'll now say, yeah, that astrology is correct. Just to cling on to this hope that, yeah, maybe Larry is still alive, or that someone is on her side at least. By her resort to superstition, Kate wants to persuade others to agree with her in her belief that Larry was alive, and now she wants to convince others through this superstition. She wants to prove through this way that what I have been saying was true, that Larry really is alive. Kate links Anne's arrival to the Keller home with the storm that had snapped the apple tree planted in Larry's memory, thinking it was a sign of something significant. So when Anne arrived at their house just a day before, the apple tree that the Kellers had planted in the memory of Larry had snapped due to a very violent storm. So everybody was linking it with that, yeah, Larry really is dead, and that is why the apple tree snapped like this. That it means Larry is dead, and so his memory is also gone. The tree that we planted in his memory is also dead, is also snapped, is also broken. But Kate is linking it with some other thing. Kate is linking that maybe this means something auspicious is going to happen, or that something related to Larry will happen, because it happened when Kate arrived in the Keller household. So it means that something big is going to happen, or maybe that Kate's marrying with Chris is a bad omen. Is a bad omen means a bad sign, you can say. She connects both these incidents with Larry's gloves that she had unexpectedly seen for the first time after Larry had left. So during this time, she also found Larry's gloves, which she had seen after a very, very long time, or after just or only after when Larry had left. This was the first time when she saw Larry's gloves. So she starts connecting these things. She starts saying that these are signs that maybe Larry is going to come back, that Larry is near us, that Larry will soon reach us. She starts connecting these things together in this kind of superstitious way, you can say. The day Larry was leaving for the battle, she got up early, even though she did not know that Larry had to leave for the war. An instinct within her indicated that something dreadful was going to happen. So when the last day Larry was seen, when he was leaving for the war, Kate had got up very early, and he found Larry getting ready for the war, even though she did not know that that day Larry had to leave. So it was kind of instinctual, right? So because she was thinking somewhere deep inside her, her instincts were telling her that something really bad is going to happen. And then later she got the news that Larry was missing in action. Now she believes that Larry is still alive, when which she feels is the right notion. So now, so she's linking these two things in such a way that when Larry went missing, I was feeling that something bad was going to happen, and so I got up early. And nowadays, I'm feeling that something good is going to happen, or maybe she's having positive vibes, you can say, about Larry. So she thinks that maybe now Larry is going to come back alive. So she's connecting these things, that when Larry went missing, I was feeling a bad thing already before that, and now I'm having good feeling. So it means that Larry must come back alive. Right, so this is basically just superstitious. Kate is impressed by Anne's devotion to Larry's memory. She is of the opinion that Anne was different from other fickle minded girls who would have changed loyalties after their lover's death. So, before Kate knew about Chris and Anne's marriage, she is basically impressed by Anne's devotion to Larry's memory. She believes that Anne will not marry anyone else and live in Larry's memory. She is of the opinion that N is different from other weak-minded girls, other fickle-minded girls, you can say. So, what does fickle-minded means? Fickle-minded means actually that someone who is prone to change, who is prone to change easily. An inconsistent person, you can say. And she believes that she is different from other girls, and other girls would have married someone else by now, because it has been about 2 years that Anne didn't marry anyone else and Larry has been missing. So Kate also believes that Anne is also waiting for Larry, that Larry will come back and marry him someday, and that's why she is still unmarried. But she doesn't know that Chris and Anne has a thing going on, and Anne is waiting for Chris to approach him for marriage, right? So this is in the background. Kate does not know about this. Kate thinks that had she forgotten Larry or thought he was dead, she would have somebody else in New York and would have got married already. So she believes that Anne would have already been married if she believed that Larry was dead and he would never come back. So this is not the reason that Anne is not married. We all know about this. The reason is that Chris and Anne are actually in a sort of relationship, but unconfirmed relationship, you can say. So that's why they are both waiting for each other to confirm their relationship and finally marry, and not because Larry could not find anyone, or not because, sorry, Anne is unsure of Larry's death. Kate has several arguments with Anne and Chris, trying to persuade them to believe that Larry would return someday. So Kate often argues with Anne and Chris. So this is the next part now. After Kate comes to know that Anne and Chris want to marry each other, then this part comes. That Kate has several arguments with Chris and Anne, who try to persuade her that Larry would not return. Larry is dead. Her son Chris is of the opinion that she is the only woman in America to be still waiting for her son to come back after 3 years. Kate thinks that deep down in her heart, Anne must be still waiting for Larry. So Kate is still of the opinion, just like I said, she is in a state of denial, and now she is in a state of denial with other things too. She has come into a state of denial with Anne's love for Larry, or Anne's waiting for Larry. She still believes that no, and deep inside, and still believes that Larry will come someday, that Larry is going to come back alive, and that Anne is waiting for Larry. Anne denies it, as she already knows that Larry has committed suicide, deeply shamed and embarrassed by his father's conviction. So Anne denies this, that I'm not waiting for Larry. She does not tell the reason to Kate, but she knows for sure that Larry is dead because she had that suicide note, and she knows that Larry committed suicide because of his father's actions. Unaware about Larry's suicide, Chris supports Anne, adding that she knows her mind well and is not waiting for Larry to return. So, giving a reason for this, Chris says that Anne knows herself and knows what's good about her, and what's the right thing to do. She knows that Larry is dead and he will not come back. He is right in the mind. It means she is not insane, and she is perfectly healthy minded. So she is not still clinging on to this hope that Larry would still come back alive, that Larry would come back someday. She knows that Larry would not come back, and that's why she decides to move on. When asked by Anne what makes her believe that Larry was still alive, Kate says certain things have to be while certain things can never be. So when N asks or inquires to Kate that why she believes that Larry will alive, what is the reason for that? What is the fact that points out that Larry is alive? So Kate starts saying superstitious things again. She starts saying that some things have to be, well, some things can never be. Like some things can take place, but some things can never take place, no matter what the situation, what the circumstances. So she's trying to actually put this scenario into this, that the things that can never happen or that can never take place is that Larry cannot die, like as if Larry is immortal, as if Larry is some kind of god. The sun has to rise, that is something which has to be. That is the reason why we believe in the existence of God. If there was no God, anything could happen. So she is saying that some things have to be, that like God would never let Larry die. This is a fact and this is a thing that can never happen. So God will never let Larry die. She is saying this kind of things. If there was no God, anything could happen. So she's saying that if there was no God, then Larry could have died or anything could have happened. But as long as there is God, then Larry cannot die, and some things can never happen, which includes Larry not dying. But God exists, hence certain things can never happen. Kate says that her heart tells her what can happen and what can never happen, and now to decide as to what can happen and what can never happen, that is up to her heart. So she's saying that my heart tells me what can happen and what cannot happen, and now my heart is telling me that Larry cannot die. This is the thing that God does not want to happen, and so it will not happen, right? So it's basically against all that superstitious stuff, institutions, so intuitions and all that, vibes, feelings, whatever you can account into it. So she's basically saying that my heart is telling me that Larry cannot die, that God will not let Larry die, and so he will not die. Kate was not enthusiastic about Anne's visit to their house, the reason being the hostility of the neighbors towards Anne's father, Steve Deaver, who was found guilty. So, when they got the news that Anne is coming to visit them, she was not very happy about it. And it was because the neighbors were still very hostile, the neighbors were still very, you can say, having bad feelings. They still had bad feelings about N's father, Steve Deaver, who was found guilty in that case. So obviously they thought that N was also similar. So hostility means showing a feeling of dislike, or it means just like rejecting someone, not liking someone, or opposing someone. So they did not like Steve Deaver because of his involvement in that criminal case, and therefore naturally they did not also like his daughter, Anne Deaver. And this was the reason why Kate did not want Anne to visit them. Kate stops Chris from criticizing Anne's father while asking Anne not to blame her father, and uh, in a similar manner, however, but in a turn of events, Kate also asks Chris that he should not blame Anne's father, and Anne also should not blame her father. On Anne's questioning her why she said so, Kate says that her father's misdeeds had nothing to do with Larry. So, when asked that why should she not blame her father for all that disaster that happened, because it was natural to blame her father because he was found guilty of it. So Kate says that because your father has nothing to do with Larry's accident or Larry's going missing, then you should not blame your father. So it doesn't matter if all those pilots died or not, as long as your father did not have anything to do with Larry, everything is fine. Don't blame him. So like this is a kind of little foolish, right? Because it's like I don't care what happens to all those 20-25 pilots, whoever all those died, nobody cares about them. As long as it doesn't have anything to do with my dear Larry, everything is fine, right? So she's saying something similar on those lines. Being aware of her husband's crime, Kate asks Chris to protect both Keller and herself from an untoward incident that could arise on George's arrival to their house. So she's aware of her husband's guilt, and therefore she's a little bit afraid. She's scared because George has become a lawyer now. So she is a little bit afraid that George wants to reopen this case. So therefore she asks Chris that you should protect me and your father well if something bad happens when George arrives through our house. She wants George and his sister Anne to leave the Keller household in order to prevent them from bringing damage to the Kellers. So she now wants George and Anne both to leave her house, to leave their house and go back, because she does not want any bad thing to any damage to happen to the Kellers. Because in her opinion, both of them could destroy them out of hatred. Because she's saying, at least she's trying to believe on the surface, that they both hate them. Because Steve Deaver got into jail and their father Joe Keller was not convicted, so they hate them. They are jealous of them, that our father got into jail while you guys had a good life, you guys led a good life. So she believes that they're kind of jealous and hateful towards the Kellers now, and therefore they wants to destroy the Keller family. Again, this is a kind of foolish thinking, but what can we say? According to her, Steve Deaver had persisted in alleging in the court till the last day of the trial that it was Keller who had asked him to dispatch the damaged cylinder heads. So she says that even till the last day, Steve Deaver kept on saying, he kept on persisting that no, it was Keller who asked me to dispatch those cylinder heads, and I am innocent, it is all Keller's fault. So she believes that maybe his children also believes the same, or his children is just hateful towards the Keller family because his father didn't get into jail instead of their father. In the midst of the speculation about George's visit, Kate's fondness for George persists, and she does not forget to prepare his favorite grape juice. So she is thinking about these things on the one side, that George and Anne should go and that they want to destroy our Keller family. But on the other side, she is still fond of George as she was when he was a little kid. And therefore she does not forget to prepare his favorite grape juice. Kate assures George that their family still loves him with the same warmth as they had done earlier. So Kate now assures George that we are still the same towards you and you needn't feel any kind of hostility from us. Showing her concern for him, she advises him to get married, assuring George that Joe would it's again written wrong here, help him with his career. Just strike it out. So she shows her concern for him. She advises George that you should get married, and Joe, that is her husband, he would help him with his career and also with finding a suitable girl for him. How much of this is left? So, amidst their conversation, Kate comes out with the truth of Keller not falling ill during the war. So, like they say, बातों बातों में बात निकल आती है. So, in this same way, what the author has written here is that during their conversation, she lets slip, or due to a slip of tongue, she lets out that Joe Keller had not fallen ill during the war, as everyone had pretended for so many years that Joe had fallen ill during that particular day. So, realizing the revelation she has made, she corrects herself, calling it a slip of the tongue, pretending that she had forgotten that Keller had fallen ill. So, basically, thing is that Joe Keller had said that when Steve Deaver shipped those cylinder heads, I was very ill and I did not ask him to do it, and I didn't come to the factory. But now Kate is saying that Joe has never been ill for so many years. So this definitely means that Joe was lying about being ill. But now Kate says, "Oh, that I said it by mistake. It just got out by mistake, and I didn't really mean it. I suddenly remember now that yeah, Joe definitely fell ill during that time." But now, instead of encouraging Keller to face his responsibilities honestly, Kate supports him in the complicity of covering up her husband's crime. So now we can clearly see that Kate is also a part of this criminal act. That instead of encouraging her husband that you should take responsibility for your actions, be a man, you should take responsibility for what you have done, she is instead supporting him. She is instead covering up for him. And complicit means involved with others in an activity that is unlawful or morally wrong. So she has become involved in this unlawful activity with him. You can just like if you help a thief, then you are a thief. Just like they say that helping a murderer is equal to committing the murder. So in the same way, helping this criminal act is equal to committing the criminal act. When Chris threatens to leave home with N, seeing that their marriage is imminent, Chris's mother plays her filial card in order to prevent the marriage, which will signal the end of her hope. So when Chris threatens that I will leave the home, I will leave the house, I will not do that business if you don't let me marry N. So now Chris' mother, that is Kate, she starts playing the filial card. Filial card here means the simple, the how do I tell you, the it means that the sympathy card, you can say, in the kind of, or the relationship, she's playing a relationship card, like connected or related with the relationship between children and their parents, the affectionate part. She's saying that what will happen to us poor people. In this way she's trying to emotionally blackmail him, you can say, that we love you so much and we can't bear to let you go, and how can you leave this, and how will we live without you, and all those sort of things. So she starts making him guilty, feel guilty that you cannot leave your parents and they can't live without you, how can you do this? Because if Chris marries N, then it would mean that N also believes that Larry has died, and there would be one more person against her. That there would be one more situation, one more obstacle in her belief that Larry is alive. Kate's indirect accusations at Joe forces Chris to confront him, compelling him to come out with the truth. So Kate indirectly accuses Joe from time to time, just like saying those parts. If you remember well, then she has said previously that God does not let a son be killed by his father, and that if Larry is dead, then he is killed by Joe. So then the other family members try to connect this thing, that how can it be, if if Larry is dead, then how does it mean that Joe killed him? So they start connecting these things, and then Chris finally asks his father, and his father is forced to reveal the truth now. He cannot hide it anymore. Out of love and concern for Chris, Kate is restless after Chris disappears from the house after his argument with Joe. So Kate obviously loves Chris too. So Kate gets very restless after Chris disappears after knowing the truth about his father's case. So if you remember it, then Chris went outside to drive to somewhere to have a walk. After Chris gets to know the truth about his father's case, he goes out for a drive. And during this time, Kate gets very restless, worrying about where Chris would be right now, and whether he's fine or not, what he's doing. So Kate gets very restless. Kate feels helpless when she comes to know that Jim Bayless knows the secret of Keller. So Kate now she gets to know that Jim also knows the secret. So she feels very helpless that now nothing can be done now. The truth is finally out. What will we do now? How will we cover it up now? Worried that Keller could not be saved anymore, she feels that there is no strength in her, and now she's worried that Joe Keller cannot be saved anymore. He is beyond saving, and she feels that she has no strength in herself now. Kate wants Joe to confess his mistake and tell Chris that he is ready to pay the penalty for his crime, which she thinks would satisfy her son and he would forgive him. So Kate believes that if Joe goes to confess to Chris that, sorry son, I did this and it is my fault, it is my mistake, I know you cannot forgive me, it says these kind of words and say that he is ready to go to jail and say that I am ready to pay for my crimes and I cannot live with this guilt anymore and stuff like this. So it would make Chris feel guilty and he would forgive his father. Kate assures Joe that his mere willingness to go to prison would make Chris forgive him. So she believes that Chris loves his father very much, and if Joe just says that I am ready to go to jail, Chris would immediately forgive him. So this is Kate's belief. Replying to Keller's justification of his act, Kate says that she wanted him to make money but not by wrong means, and there is no excuse for him to say that he made money by fraud for the sake of his family. So when Keller starts giving his justifications that he did this for the family, for his wife, for their good future, Kate says that I did want you to make money. I did want to get rich, but not by wrong means. This is not an excuse that you can give that you made money by wrong means for the sake of the family. Kate's refusal to Chris and Anne's marriage, even after several requests made by both of them, compels Anne to show her trump card in the form of Larry's letter to save her future union with Chris. So Kate kept on refusing the request to marry. So in the end, Anne was forced to show her Larry's letter that now you will have to believe that Larry is dead because he committed suicide. It was not murder or accident. He committed suicide. So you will have to believe that Larry is dead. And if Larry is dead, then Kate will have to let Chris and Harry marry each other. Kate is not at all disturbed by the contents of the letter, for she had known all this while her husband was responsible for killing Larry. So shockingly, Kate is not shocked. Kate is not disturbed to read the letter because somewhere inside she already knew that yeah, Larry is dead and that he was dead because of his father's fault, because of Joe's fault. The letter forces Kate to accept Larry's death and her husband's crime of killing 21 pilots. So the thing is not that Larry is dead or Larry was dead or that there was a fact now to prove that Larry was dead. It was already known to everyone in the house that Larry was dead, even to Kate. But Kate wanted to prove to the others that Larry was not dead. But now here was a downright proof that Larry was dead. So she could not pretend anymore. Earlier she could pretend because there was no exact proof that Larry was dead, so she could pretend that no, Larry is alive. But here at this point she could not convince the others that Larry was dead because here was a downright proof that Larry had to be dead. So therefore now she has to also accept that okay, fine, Larry is dead, the play is finished now, I cannot pretend anymore. Kate wants to save her husband from languishing in jail, pleading with Chris not to take him to the police, saying that the war is over and that the contents of the letter no longer have any meaning as Larry is dead. So Kate does not want her husband to live an impoverished life in the jail, to live a miserable life in the jail, and that is why she requests Chris that do not take him to police. The war is already over. So what does anything means now? The war is over. Nobody cares about the deaths and all that anymore. And Larry is already dead, so what does this letter have? Why does this letter have any meaning anymore? If Larry is already dead, then his letter is also meaningless. It does not matter if he committed suicide or did what, because she is kind of like if Larry was still alive, then he would not want his father to go to jail and stuff like. She's trying to just convince him not to take his father to jail. After the shot is heard from inside the house, Kate understands that Joe had killed himself as a punishment for his crime of killing 21 pilots. Despite her own grief of losing her husband, she lovingly consoles Chris, telling him not to hold himself responsible for his father's death, but to forget the past and live a new life. So Kate is a very strong natured woman, you can say. So instead of crying herself, being inconsolable herself, she consoles his son Chris that son, be strong. Your father is dead, but you should not blame yourself and you should try to be strong. You should live a good life from now on and forget what happened in the past. So this was the characterization of Kate Keller. In the next video, we're going to discuss the characterization of Endeavor.